Labdien to everybody who is listening to the WebEx. It's an honor to be here today to open the technology track and speak about tech sprints and transformation and the emerging Regtech revolution. Right now, I'm calling from northern Vermont in the US. I'm only 6 miles from the Canadian border, where it is just sunrise here on the early morning of our very American tradition of Thanksgiving. Around the world, and especially in Latvia, there is a lot of concern about the burden and the cost of regulation on covered institutions. But when you think about the purpose of regulation to ensure the safety and soundness of the financial system, to protect consumers from harm, to expand financial inclusion, and stop financial crime, the need for effective regulation is undoubtedly clear. My name is David Ehrich, and I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of AIR, the Alliance for Innovative Regulation. And we are a nonprofit organization that operates at the intersection of technology, innovation, and regulation. And we work with regulators and central banks around the globe to advocate for a digitally native regulatory system, essentially advocating for the use of responsible technology to help consumers and small businesses build their financial health. AIR is focused on asking the question of how technology can be of service to create a more safe and more inclusive financial system. And key to our approach is thinking about how regulators themselves can better understand, anticipate, and make use of technology, both to meet their mission and support industry adoption, with an ultimate goal of making regulation more effective and more efficient, creating better outcomes for consumers and for society at less cost. To that end, AIR's focus areas include projects on gender and racial equity. For example, we're helping women overcome the disproportionate impact of the COVID financial crisis. We're focusing on green finance with examples like the Crypto Climate Accord to help decarbonize the crypto industry, and the use of digital technology to drive financial inclusion in emerging markets. But one way to think about AIR is for regulators and government officials to start with the question, how confident are you that our regulatory agencies and our regulators have the right tools available to them to identify all the consumer protections and all the discriminatory lending practices or money laundering that's taking place in the system? Our financial services system is extremely complex, and our regulators have the hardest job, but they're frequently working with analog reports that are based on delayed and sampled data. But today's technology has moved so far beyond that about how to use AI and other kinds of technologies that can radically magnify the work that a single human can possibly accomplish. And the Bank of England likes to say that the volume of data that needs to be reviewed would require every regulator to read the entire works of Shakespeare 2 times every day. And that's just not simply possible without the support of technology. Our regulatory professionals don't need to spend their time collecting and massaging and standardizing data. That's all work that should be done by computers. Their expertise and insight should be more focused on identifying and intervening illegal activity or identifying and fixing disparate impact. And this is the promise of technology. With almost zero marginal cost, technology offers the opportunity to radically scale solutions to regulatory problems while lowering the cost of compliance for the entire financial services ecosystem. At AIR, we work with regulatory agencies to help them better understand technology for 2 reasons. Regulators need to better understand new technologies that they have to regulate. But then just as important is the opportunity to leverage new technologies into their own existing processes to do a better job of supervision and regulation. At AIR, we think of our work in 3 strategic pillars. We think about educate, accelerate, and scale. Where educate is about creating new intellectual capital, like our white papers, including the Regtech manifesto and our case study of the innovation journey at the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. And we host convenings and conferences to explore these ideas about how to use technology to innovate the regulatory system. Under the headline of Accelerate, AIR conducts and promotes tech sprints and incubators and sandboxes to identify, build, and implement new digital solutions for regulators. And we'll come back to what tech sprints are and how they're useful. And then lastly, for scale, AIR works to promote open source solutions that cross the regulatory system and create interoperability and data standards across multiple platforms and jurisdictions. We've all worked for decades to stop financial crime, to improve financial inclusion and financial health, but we're meeting today because we still have a long way to go, and the promise of technology and the opportunities to leverage technology offer a huge opportunity. We've seen several successes with financial technology, creating mobile access to bank accounts, expanding access to capital with the use of cash flow data for safe and affordable and automated underwriting. But technology that's driving this transformation over the last 5 years, we've also started to see negative impacts on consumers, like bias in AI or challenges with our ability to regulate privacy. So even as we've had exponential growth and technology development in the financial services sector, what we see is we followed a path. We started with unregulated industries and technology development, like social media, search, mostly in the benefit of developing retail solutions. At that time, you saw less activity in the regulated industries because the technologists didn't have the insight or the experience to leverage technologies for regulated industries. And in the last 5 to 6 years, you've seen an enormous expansion of technology use in fintech, in health tech, in education tech, and insurtech, all regulated industries that have just seen an explosion in the use of technology to help them provide a better consumer experience, protect consumers from harm, and ensure the safety and soundness of the systems that they operate in. What we have seen is the emergence of Regtech and SupTech. And this is adapting technology for the regulation of complex financial systems. Regtech being the kinds of technologies that can be used by financial institutions that are looking to meet their compliance requirements, and SupTech, meaning supervisory technology, the technology that's often used by regulatory agencies to actually implement the technology that they have available to them to help them do a better job of supervision. What we see for Regtech and SupTech are really strong emerging use cases. For example, in anti-money laundering, one of the largest challenges of creating systemic responses to money laundering is the challenges that financial institutions face with regards to privacy. And so PET, or privacy enhanced technologies, can be critical in helping to address those issues. Here at AIR and at the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, we've actually tried to address those new technologies by creating a tech sprint or a hackathon to bring together the multiple disparate stakeholders across the ecosystem, technologists, regulatory agencies, academics, and consumer groups, to help them assess, identify, and create new solutions to age-old regulatory problems using technologies and using new technologies that can transform our ability to address them. Financial regulators play a key role in navigating these changing waters because we have to take actions to protect consumers, to stop financial crime. And the opportunity of technology is to really deliver a financial services system which is anchored in fairness and safety and security. What are the challenges that our regulatory agencies face In many cases, our regulatory agencies are lawyers and they're not trained in technology. We like to say that this is not a technology issue, this is a change management issue, right? We have to bring into the regulatory agencies people who have expertise in technology and who understand how technology can be useful to transform a regulatory system that is largely analog or largely manual. In terms of how to do that, hackathons, tech sprints, incubators can be very powerful tools to bring together people with different backgrounds to share understandings and create a common vision for how to use technology to solve regulatory problems. You know, the biggest challenge that we see today in the emergence of Regtech and soup tech is that our whole regulatory system is focused on regulating individual entities. But with the emergence of blockchain and decentralized finance, we now begin to see the emergence of an entirely new system where the regulation of entities may not be relevant. Now we're actually talking about what does regulation look like when what you're regulating is a decentralized system. So the role of technology is only increasing in its importance. And as transformation is underway, we have an enormous obligation and responsibility to understand that technology, understand how technology is transforming around us. And as regulators and government agencies, take the steps to be aware of those changes and continually ask the question about how technology can help achieve the regulatory outcomes that you desire. With that, I will close and say that the key takeaways from today is to really ask yourselves the question, what can I do or what can my agency do to help forward our understanding of technology and our use of technology? Thank you. Labdias.
Mr. David Ehrich, thank you very much. Just hold on for one question. You already mentioned that that the financial systems and regulatories, they are very complex systems. And of course, I want to ask about the scalability. Is there a methods that you can apply and that works for everyone? Because of course, if you compare United Kingdom to United States or other parts in the world, there are different rules, different approaches.
That's absolutely correct, Christoph. And the path forward that we propose is by leveraging open source code to the degree that you can actually create solutions that are built in open source that can be shared between jurisdictions. You have the opportunity to create a solution that can be customized by multiple jurisdictions. So for example, you could imagine a web crawler that's looking at any number of issues that you could find on the internet, offers of lending that may be at rates that are above the legal threshold of that particular jurisdiction. You could actually create a web crawler that had variable inputs so that you could change the inputs according to the requirements of that jurisdiction, but that fundamentally works on the same code that can be shared across jurisdictions.
Yeah. So the open code, open source, open data is basically the answer of the question, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I guess we meet you later. Yeah, in the panel, or are you participating in the panel? Or I saw your name, or maybe
I think not. I'm just giving the opening.
Okay.
Here.
All right.
But thank you, Christoph.
Okay, and happy Thanksgiving.
I hope that was useful.
Happy Thanksgiving.